Welcome everyone. In this video, I will be talking about setting continuous integration with GitHub Workflows. But before we do that, let me talk about continuous integration itself. What is continuous integration? There are many definitions out there, and you might get confused. The definition that I like comes from the GitHub itself, and they define continuous integration, or CI, as a software practice that requires frequently pushing our code to a shared repository. Now, what might be the benefits of doing that? We at least have two benefits. The first benefit is the ability of frequently making a release. Since we are frequently pushing the code, we can make frequent releases. You can actually make a release after every successful push. The other benefit is that we can able to detect the errors faster. Because we are frequently pushing the code, we can get the feedback if we introduce the errors after every push. So if there is something wrong, we can know it much faster. Also, when we frequently push the code, we generally do not make that huge changes. So the changes, the size of changes are small, and finding some errors in small changes is much easier than finding some potential errors in huge changes. Now, how can we get the feedback if we introduce the errors or not after every push? Obviously, we cannot do that magically. We need to write some automated tests that check our new functionality, right? So we frequently push the code. We also have the automated tests for checking our functionality. Are we done? We are actually not done. We have the third step. So after push, this CI process also requires building and testing the application. So it will run the tests that we write here. So it will use these tests to check that everything is fine. And this whole process, this third step, is also automated. We do not do that manually. So far, we discussed the idea of continuous integration. So let's now see it in the practice. I have a demo application. So we obviously need an application to see it in the practice. By the way, I'm using IntelliJ IDE. You can use any IDE if you want. I have the repository here, but I also have the repository in my GitHub account. So if I come here, I have this repository here too. All right, let's discuss what this application is all about. This is actually a very simple app, which is a Spring Boot app, and we are using Maven as our build tool. Let's find out what we have. This is just one class. We just have one class, and we just have one endpoint. So when we make a request to /hello, it will return hello world. So this is an extremely simple Spring Boot web application. As we discussed, when you have the application, you should also have some automated tests. So for that reason, I created a test here with the help of Zero Code automated testing framework. Zero Code makes automating testing super easy. And if you don't know about Zero Code, I actually have a couple of videos about Zero Code. I actually have a course on Zero Code automating testing framework on Udemy, which I highly recommend to check out. In Zero Code, we do not write the actual testing code. We specify a scenario, which is a JSON file. So let's go to our scenario, and this is our scenario. And here we describe our test. We are saying that this HTTP method should be get, and the URL should be localhost 8080/hello. So this URL, hello, and we do not have any payload, and we specify that we want to verify that status is 200, HTTP status code is 200, and what we get back is hello world. So this string. Okay, so very simple application, very simple test. So we declare the test. Now it's time for step 3, which is a CI process. And this is where GitHub comes into the picture, GitHub Workflows. Now, if you pay attention, I have a .github folder here. I also have this folder in GitHub repository, central repository. If I expand it, I have another folder called Workflows. So make sure that you have the same names, .github and Workflows. And I have my CI file here. I called it CI. You can call it anything you want. It's the name itself is optional. So GitHub actually will look into this file. Let's take a look. So we have a name here, which is optional, and it will display it when GitHub will run this file. And we have two main keywords, which is on and jobs. Let's talk about the jobs. Well, jobs basically is a collection of individual jobs, and each job has multiple steps. So here in this case, I just have one job, and this is the name. You can name anything you want. I chose this build and test name, and this job has steps, right? And step is just individual tasks that we want to execute. Let's talk about each individual step that we have. So this is a one step, and it has a name, which is again optional, but I always try to give it a good name so that when other people check out, they understand what this step is all about. And this first step takes care about checkout master branch in GitHub virtual environment. So when GitHub will run this job and tasks inside it, it needs a virtual environment, right? And we specify that environment here. We're basically saying that I want you to use the latest version of Ubuntu operating system for your virtual environment. Now, what are some other available options? Basically, you can go to here, and I have this link in the description. And here you can see this virtual environment tab, and you can check out some potential operating systems. For example, we know that Ubuntu latest refers to Ubuntu 20. There are also Ubuntu 18, 16. There's also macOS and Windows. And by the way, you can actually specify the multiple environments here. I'm just specifying the one. So in the first step, we are checking out the master branch. And checking out basically means that GitHub will download the code from the master branch in its virtual environment. And how can you do it? Well, we specify it here with uses keyword. In uses keyword, we specify some action that GitHub community wrote. And action basically is a piece of functionality, right? And GitHub community, the people there write some actions. Now, what are some available actions? Well, you can go to github.com/actions, and it gives you the list of potential actions that people in GitHub community wrote. So I'm using this checkout v2. So let me actually find this here. And this is our action. If I go here, if I scroll down, I can see that this action checks out your repository under a workplace, basically. Okay, so this is how can we specify the action. The next step is to set up Java version. And we also use some predefined GitHub actions. In this case, this is called setup Java. So if I come here, I can find it, setup Java. And you can read that it setups a specific version of Java. And we are saying that we want Java 11. And last two steps are for Maven, since we are using Maven as our build tool. So if you pay attention, I have this file here, which is a Maven executable. And when you create a project with Spring Initializer, it gives you this file. So what I'm saying is that I'm giving a GitHub runner a permission to execute this file. And this is the name, obviously, which describes what we're doing, give permission to execute. And in the last step, we are actually building and testing our project using this file. And if you are familiar with Maven, this should look very familiar. We are actually using verify command. Now you might be asking, why shouldn't we use package phase, for example, package command? Well, I'm using zero code, and zero code is an integration testing tool. So we need this verify command here. And this -b basically runs this verify command in a batched mode. And this really helps us with regard to log files. Okay, so we have a job here which basically can check out the code, set up our Java version, and package our application and test our application, which happens in this step. So this step actually is responsible for packaging and testing our application, and it will run this test that we specified here. Now you might be asking, when does GitHub run this job, build and test job? Well, we specify when it will run here. This is actually an event. So GitHub has the concept of an event, and event is just a specific activity. It's nothing more than a specific activity. And we are specifying that we want to run this job, and the jobs that we will have here, we just have one job, on the push, and we specify the branch to be a master. So whenever people will push to our master branch, it will run this job and potentially other jobs that we will have. Now, what are some available events that we can also specify? We can also specify pull request, for example, instead of push, or maybe with the push. We can also specify the release, for example. You can also set up some cron job. You can say that, okay, I want you to run these jobs in every 5 seconds, in every 5 minutes. You can do that. Yeah, so we have our event and we have our workflow defined. By the way, if the concepts of event or maybe a job or step or any other related concepts are unclear, I highly recommend to check out GitHub's documentation on this topic. And this is the link that I will have in the description. And they go quite in details in describing what each individual concept really means. Okay, so we have our CI script ready. We have our ci.yaml. I also have this project, as I said, in my GitHub central repository. So let's actually make some change on my master branch. I'm using my master branch here, which you can see on the lower right hand side. So master. So if I make a change to this master branch, this CI script should be run by the GitHub. So let's do that. I will actually introduce an error. So instead of hello world, I will just return a hello. So our test, which is this one, expects hello world, but we return hello. So it should fail. The test should fail. So let me commit this change. I will say introduce an error, commit. And obviously we need to push those changes because we are saying that this job should be run on push on master branch. So let me push those changes. Push. It asks me for merge. Let's merge it. And let's wait for push, and push is successful. Let's go to the project. And if you pay attention to this action tab, let's check out this action tab. You will see on the left-hand side, we have this basically workflow, sample GitHub CI example. And it should be familiar because we specified the name here. And here you can see that we have all workflows, and our push triggered a workflow. Let's check it out. And we have our jobs here, build and test. So this is the name, build and test. So GitHub found out that we pushed our code into master branch and it ran this job. Okay, so this is the process. Let's go here, let's check it out. And here we have individual, and it failed as we expected. Let me check it out later. So we have each individual steps here. For example, we have checkout master branch, right, in GitHub virtual environment. Let me actually bring it here to see it better. So we have this first step, which is checkout master branch, and you can see here the corresponding step. We have setup JDK, give permission, build, and there are some other steps that GitHub has by default. So we know that our test should have failed, and you can see that we have this red sign here. Let's check it out. This is the command that it ran, the command that we specified here, this command. So let's see exactly what is wrong. It is a lot of logs. Maven downloads some jar files. Okay. We see that it starts our Spring Boot application on 8080 port. And we should see now this is Java 11 stuff, which has nothing to do with our project. So this is actually a warning, not an error. So if we come here, we can say that this is the error. So the actual value hello did not match the expected value hello world. So we know that our test has been run and it failed because we returned hello and not hello world. So now we get a feedback that our changes contains errors. And we also see this red sign here, X sign, that something's wrong. Now let me actually revert those changes. And let me write hello world here. Make sure that we have the same hello world here. Yes, hello world. We'll say revert bad changes, commit. And when I push, GitHub should also run our job because we specified that in our CI file. Again, here on push master branch. So let's go here, specify, go to the actions tab. And it triggered our workflow. So this is the name of the commit, by the way, if you pay attention. So let's go here, and it will take a couple of seconds to run our workflow. Let's wait until it's finished. Our workflow is done, and as you can see, we have this green tick, which means that everything was fine. We didn't have any mistakes, and obviously we can check each individual steps here to make sure that everything is fine. Now if we go to the code tab here, we also see that we have this green tick. So as you can see, it's extremely easy to set up GitHub CI. Obviously you should have some automated tests already written that will be run during CI process. Now lastly, I want to talk about some sample workflows. So if you go to actions here, if you go to, let's say, new workflow, GitHub suggests you some sample workflows. So maybe you are new to GitHub CI and you don't know where to start. Maybe you are not even using Java. In this case, we are using Java. So in that case, I would definitely recommend to check out these templates as it says here. And it gives you idea how you would want to set up a GitHub CI. It will scan your repository and will propose the corresponding template. In this case, GitHub scanned our repository. It found out that we are using Java and Maven, and it proposed, for example, this template, workflow template. And if I come here, set up this workflow, it actually is very, very similar to what we wrote. So this is a good start if you're new to GitHub CI. All right, this was all for now. I'll see you in the next one.